think it's on.
Yeah, it's on. I want to bring it. Is it live on yours? Did you try the link?
No, I put my laptop. This one is not.
Oh yeah, it's live.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We continue, inshallah, with Book of Funerals. So, before going on to talk about the ghusl or the Islamic bath, there is a few points here that I want to clarify. Okay, the first is we talked about taking off the clothes of the dead person, right? This is true except for the martyr in the battlefield. If somebody died in the battlefield, you don't take off his clothes. Okay, if somebody died in the battlefield, a martyr was defending, Islam, defending his homeland, something like that. In the battlefield, he is not to be taken off the clothes for him or him. That's number one. Second thing is these two here, Islamic bath, the ghusl, janaza, these are obligatory. This is like, the 5 prayers. This is an obligation, but it is something called fard kifaya. It's a community obligation. Means that if no one does it in the community, then everybody's carrying a sin. Everybody is sinning. If nobody prays janaza and nobody gives the ghusl, then everybody is carrying a sin. And if somebody does it, if some people do it, a group of the Muslims do this Islamic bath and the Salatul Janaza, then they get rewarded for it, and no one is sinning. Okay, so if few people do it, then no one is sinning. It's fardu kifaya. It's called fardu kifaya. And again, these two here, the ghusl and the funeral prayer, are for everybody except for the battlefield martyr as well. So the battlefield martyr, you don't wash him and you don't pray on him. The battlefield martyr is you don't do these 2 points here. Then the third one that is also a community obligation is wrapping the body in a cloth. Wrapping the body in a cloth is called kafan. Or this we'll talk about it in detail, what it is exactly, but it is another community obligation for the dead person, whoever died, and this includes the battlefield martyr. Wrapping the body in the cloth is a community obligation.
Wrapping the body is even for the martyr.
Except that you don't take off his clothes, but you have to wrap him somehow. Here he mentions also that that this also wrapping or this is also true. Wrapping the body and burying the dead body is also an obligation. If, for example, if a non-Muslim dies, right? If a non-Muslim dies and nobody is taking care of the body, nobody is burying the body, nobody is taking care of the body, then it is still an obligation on the Muslims to wrap him and to bury the body. It becomes an obligation on the Muslims to imagine if it's a war or something, and somebody that dies and nobody's taking care of him. It's again an obligation on the Muslims to wrap him and to. Of course, there is no funeral prayer, and there's no funeral prayer on that case. So
to wrap him and do burial.
To wrap him and do burial, but no funeral prayer in this case. Now we talk about a new topic, which is the ghusl or.
And one of the things is you said battlefield martyr. But so it is specific for the battlefield martyr, not, for example, when people die in fire. They
Yes.
consider it, or
No, yeah, it's only the battlefield martyr. So if somebody, so the shaheed or the martyr is three types. Okay, we call shaheed al-dunya, shaheed al-akhirah, and shaheed al-dunya wal-akhirah. Right, the martyr of this dunya, the martyr of this life, and the martyr of the hereafter, and the martyr of this dunya and the hereafter. The martyr of the hereafter is a martyr that is treated as martyr in hereafter, but not treated as martyr in dunya, which is the one who died, for example, drowning. Somebody died in a fire. Somebody died out of stomach sickness. That's we call it the shaheed of hereafter. COVID-19. Maybe, I don't know. Yes, actually, we talked about this. I think I looked it up before. Yes, so this is also all these people. They are treated in the hereafter as a martyr, but in dunya you treat him as a regular person that died. And the martyr of this dunya and the hereafter is a martyr in the battlefield, the one who died in the battlefield. That's the martyr of this dunya and the hereafter, right? And the martyr of this dunya, we hope not to be amongst those. Those are the ones who we think that they died in the battlefield legitimately, so they are not treated. You don't do ghusl and funeral, but in the hereafter, sadly, they were not. Their intention was not appropriate, so they are not treated as martyr in the hereafter. We ask Allah not to be amongst those. And the ghusl or the Islamic bath. The ghusl or the Islamic bath, we start by saying that I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but I mentioned again, there are basically ghusl, we call it ghusl from now on, okay? Which is Islamic bath. Has two obligatory actions. Number one, removing filth. Number two, letting the water touch every. Is there a better way to say it? Letting the water touch every part of the body.
how we know it?
Okay, letting the water touch every part of the body or the skin of the body. I think it's clear. Okay, so removing filth. These are the two obligations. If you do this, ghusl is done. So it's done if you do these two things. Removing filth, all this, if he has any blood, any urine, anything like that. Removing the filth, letting the water touch every part of the body, the ghusl is done, the obligation of the ghusl is done. Like the intention, that intention, especially in the Shafi'i madhab, is a very serious matter. But intention is not required in this. No intention required. So no intention required. What does this mean? It means also, I think, is it coming? Coming. No intention required means that ghusl can be done even by Muslim, because no intention required. So ghusl can be done even by non-Muslim. it's not appearing, I think, this part, but it's okay. I am saying it verbally, but basically, ghusl can be done even by a non-Muslim. Yeah. So no intentions of the ghusl. Number one, removing filth, letting water touch every. No intention required. Ghusl can be done even by a non-Muslim. We'll talk about this in more detail later, but that's basically, this is now, if you do this, you are done with those. Okay, but we will talk. Okay,
So which will include the various cleaning nose and
we'll talk about everything, inshallah. Okay, now that we know that, we'll talk about the detailed steps of ghusl to include the sunnah actions. Number one, place the body in on board in a closed room where no people are there except those doing the ghusl. Number two, remember we talked about putting a qamis last time, so keep the qamis on during the ghusl.
Last time we said we move further. Now we cover all, right?
Yeah, you always have him covered. You always have him covered. You cover him. He's covered with sheet. You always cover him with sheet. Don't expose him out of respect for the human being. You don't expose him unless there is a need for that. But usually he is always covered. And we'll talk about this qamis in detail, inshallah, and what to deal with it. But now he's in this place. So when you are transferring him, for example, you put the qamis down. He's covered, and you put him on this place, right? So he died in his house or in the hospital. You move the body, you put the qamis down so that he's not exposed, and you move him to the place where he's going to have the ghusl. And when you go there, you also cover him with the sheet again, and then cover up to the wrist again, okay, up to the waist again. Yeah. Number three, use cool water for ghusl. Don't use hot water or even warm. If you can, we have regular temperature, like cool water. That will be you are applying the sunnah. Of course, if you do warm water, I'm just telling you the perfect scenario. Okay, we are talking about the perfect scenario. Okay, the perfect scenario is you use cool water, not too cold, but comfortably cool water. Okay, I think we are kind of out of time. Inshallah, I'll continue this next time. These are the first steps. We continue talking about the rest of the steps, inshallah, next time. Unless there's any questions so far?
The periods between, after he died.
That's a very good question.
Between he died and then the husul, the periods. You have a period for that.
You should. So actually, this period, point number 0 actually is ghusl has to be done. Basically, you should haste doing the ghusl. The ghusl has to be done as soon as possible. Basically, haste to do ghusl after death. So this is the first point. I forgot to mention it, but yes, it's an important point. Haste to do ghusl after death.
For the room, that's not always possible. Sometimes people make a room with the sheets.
Yeah, that should be sufficient.
That's very common.
He shouldn't be exposed to others other than the ones who are doing the ghusl. You shouldn't to anybody other than those who are involved in the ghusl, basically, and it has to be covered otherwise, respecting the person that died. Okay, we stop here, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب